Coming up on Headline Humboldt, more than 160 years after the massacre of hundreds of Wiyot tribal members by residents of Eureka and other cities, the tribe is surviving and thriving as it reasserts itself and works to honor a rich and unique cultural heritage. We speak to tribal leaders about their progress. Also, Humboldt County supervisors consider a $500 per donor cap on local campaign contributions. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. This is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. An event that some would identify as the original sin of Humboldt County, the massacre of hundreds of Wiyot tribal members by a clandestine group of raiders from the nearby city of Eureka, has long been on the forefront of the community's conscience. All these years later, the tribe is now making major headway not only in reacquiring the land on which the massacre occurred, the center of the Wiyot world, but also in securing and restoring so much of the tribe's cultural legacy. We plan over the next several months to run a series of stories that will examine how this work proceeds. But first, I'd like to suggest that these efforts are an opportunity for all of us to recognize the crimes of history and do better. There is, of course, no forgiving or forgetting the slaughter of innocents. But we as a community can either be known in the modern era for recognizing these crimes and doing all we can to help, or we can squander this last opportunity to do the right and moral thing and never live down the worst crimes of our ancestors. If that happens, these horrific acts will continue to define us for another 160 years. For the sake of the tribe, for the good of everyone, we should support these efforts of those we once brutalized. Now is the time to make that choice. To start this conversation, let's watch a brief segment from a retro local project Keat completed in 2020, outlining the crimes committed against the tribe over the past 160 years and how they've endured despite those challenges.
There was between 3,000 and 5,000 Wiyot people living all over. We went down to Bear River, we went up to Little River, out to Chalk Mountain, to Berry Summit. That was our domain.
And so starting in late February 1860, they launched a series of attacks where at least a dozen Wiyot villages were attacked at night and as many of the Indians as possible killed and the villages burned. And the one that we know the most about, and that's always been publicized, was the one on Indian Island, the Dulawat village. It appears to me that probably more than half of the Wiyots were killed.
On the night of the Indian Island attack, the Wiyot tribe was in the midst of its World Renewal Ceremony, an annual event that balanced out the competing forces of the universe and ensured humanity's well-being on Earth.
There was a baby, which was my great-grandfather, and there was two toddlers or two young children, and there was a couple of young teenagers that survived that night on the island, and an old woman who was quagmired in the mud. When the citizens of Eureka came out, she was singing a song, and so we come to understand the song probably was a song of mourning the death of everyone there. It was a really sad event. We lost everything, the land, which we knew was ours, and then they brought us to Fort Humboldt in deplorable conditions. Then they moved us to Smith River. We came home. They moved us to Hoopa area. We came home. Then they thought they would take us hours and hours away down to Covelo, Round Valley. But we were like salmon. We come home.
So we're joined in studio now by Chairman Ted Hernandez. Thanks for coming down.
Yeah, no problem.
And Cultural Liaison. Sorry, I have tongue-tied today. Cheryl Seidner, who you saw on the short film there. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So first thing I'd like to make clear is that one of the things I regret about these kind of reports is it's like the Wiyots come up with the massacre, and the massacre, it's like the Wiyots are only the massacre, and that is not true. I mean, obviously, and you guys know this. So I look forward to this project as an opportunity to do some coverage of some of the positive work you guys are doing to both restore some of the legacy that was lost and to just build your community up. So thank you for doing this with us, and I appreciate your time. Let's first talk about the Wiyot tribe proper. There are several different bands and groups who have Wiyot members in them, right? But the Wiyot Tribe is the official organ of the Wiyot people. Is that how you describe it?
You would like to go ahead?
I will let the chairman speak.
So the Wiyot Tribe is the main branch of the Wiyot people. Yes, we do have other rancherias that have Wiyot descendants in the tribe, but they are not Wiyot citizens. They are Wiyot descendants of the Wiyot Tribe. So you have Bear River, Roan River Rancheria, you have Blue Lake, and you also have some in Trinidad. Those are the Wiyot Tribe considers Wiyot descendants, not citizens. Because if you're in the Wiyot Tribe, then you are Wiyot citizens and you speak for the Wiyot people.
Okay, and so the people can be a part of another rancheria or whatever, and they'll be a member of that rancheria, but be a descendant of the Wiyot Tribe, right?
Yes.
So if someone is a Wiyot tribal member, that's a particular distinction that is under your government's control.
Correct.
Okay.
Not control,
Well,
because our Wiyot people are our general council, and they are the ones that have the final say what the Wiyot Tribe does.
okay. So how does that work? Is it like referendums or something, or?
So we have a business council that does business for the Wiyot Tribe, but then we also the business council also answers to our general council, who makes policies, and we do votes on our laws and our procedures. So we have to go through them, do our general council meetings, and those are in April and October.
Oh, okay, right on. Excellent. Now, as if adding insult to injury, or I don't know what you want to call it, but there was the massacre and all the displacement that happened, which you were talking about in that video, where you were moved to, Humboldt and Round Valley, and the tribe was moved to a bunch of different places. But then you had your federal recognition taken away in the 1960s.
Correct.
Do you remember that as a individual?
I was a kid.
Did
I was about 8, 9 years old.
Do you remember hearing it, or even hearing about it when you were a little
Oh,
older?
I remember people coming to the house and talking, because my dad was the tribal chair at the time, back in the early 50s. Yeah. And but I really don't remember much of it. I just remember that we became non-Indian Indians.
Yeah. What were your thoughts about that later on? I mean, how did you come to view that insult? I mean, as I see it.
Well, my mom told me, well, not just my mom and dad told me that your parents are Wiyot, your grandparents are Wiyot, that makes you Wiyot, and nobody can take that away from you. Yeah. And they told us about the massacre on the island and what happened to them, and how they moved us all around to Smith River, up to Hupa area, and down to Round Valley. But like salmon, we know how to come home, and that's what we did. And finally, they just let us alone and says, just leave them alone. They're not doing anything. Yeah. And so that's how we got. What it make me feel like? I didn't feel any different. Yeah. Because I had two very strong, parents who said that we will survive. We will continue on doing what we do. Yeah. That's
Now, since you're the daughter of a tribal chairperson and a prominent figure, did you feel that call to serve because of that family connection, or was it your own preference?
I can't tell you when that came to my head, but my father was well liked by a lot of people, and my mother was the quiet one. But don't ruffle her feathers. She'll let you know. But I saw my parents constantly working in the community, whether it's the Native American community or the non-Native American community. Mother was part of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and she served as the president of the Veterans of Foreign Wars for the Women's Auxiliary.
Was your dad a veteran?
No, my dad. They wouldn't take him because he had too many kids at home.
Okay.
Wow. When World War II broke out, and but he was one of those guys that had binoculars and stood out in the field when planes would come over, and he would tell them how high it was and what direction they're going, what kind of plane it was. Yeah, a spotter. Cool. And he said he saw some many interesting things, and so that was his legacy for that. Yeah. But they were very hardworking people, and they worked, diligently in the community, whether native or non-native. Yeah, and it seems like you've taken up that standard. I mean, you've been at this for a lot of years. I've been
I've been in journalism for a long time around here since 2000, and you were there then, and you were a proud and loud voice for your community. And I think of all the progress that you've made since then. I mean, in terms of getting the land back from the island, working with the city, which I know that you had a lot to do with. Do you feel like, how far do you feel like you've come in the time that you've been pushing?
I think we've come a long ways because there were people who didn't even know there were Indians in the community.
Yeah.
And I happened to tell a friend of mine one time, I found my voice, and he looked at me, he says, "You never lost it. You never not had it. You always spoke." If I wasn't talking about Indian things, I was talking about people's rights.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the first grade looking out for somebody who was younger than I. And when I was older, looking out for another young kid who another kid was going to beat up. I said, "You got to come through me first." And never fought a day in my life, never hit anybody in my life. And but just to have somebody pick on somebody because they weren't like them,
Yeah.
or they were weaker, it just really bothered me. So it was one of those things that's what my mom and dad did. They did that very well, and I just followed in their footsteps and tried to do what they did. And no, I never did exactly what they did. You know, my dad gets into a Coast Guard boat and takes people off the roofs of their house in the 55 and
That's
64
right, yeah,
flood.
he was a hero, yeah.
And I may not have done that, but he did that. He was that kind of guy. And my mom, who goes up against a man who has a college degree, she only had 8th grade education, Dad only had 6th grade education. And she stood up to him and says, "These things need to be fixed where they worked."
Yeah.
Though she couldn't bring the union in, she got him to change some things where she was working. That takes a lot of umph.
Chutzpah, or whatever they say. So Ted, what's your story? How did you get involved in leadership for the tribe?
Don't you point at me.
I saw that finger.
No, so me and my family are originally located from Colusa County up here because we received a home on the reservation, and I was going to the council meetings and sitting there in the audience, and then one day Cheryl came to me and asked me if I would like to be on council, and I told her I would have to think about it, go talk to my wife, and my wife and I talked, and I went back and told Cheryl, yeah, I would.
I called up his mom.
Yeah, she did. But that's, her and my mom were best friends growing up, and, Cheryl's been like that second mom away from mom.
Sure.
But, so that's how I ended up becoming on council. In 2021 is when she sat me on as a council member in the council.
Okay.
So it's all because of Cheryl that I'm here today as a council member and as a chairperson.
Now, so you guys are, like I said, I'm trying to separate the Wiyots now from sort of the Wiyot of history that we kind of have this idea about. I mean, people seem to have forgotten about them and then recently think that this is a new movement to like get the island restored and all that, but you guys were working hard on that for decades.
Well, what I said one time when somebody had asked me that question, I said, the day after the massacre took place is the day that we started wanting our land back.
Yeah.
It may not have been a conscious decision, like, oh, we're going to get it back. Look what they did to us. Look at our elders, our children, our dreamers, our elders who were there trying to teach us. But I took it back and said, no, we started that trip, that journey, the day after the massacre.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it's the center of your universe. I mean, in
Yes.
terms of the theology, it's the most important place, right? I mean, could you say that?
No, it is. It's our creation story. It's sort of the birth of where the Wiyots come from. Is that island? Is the center of our world.
Yeah. Yep, and you guys finally managed to get the city to deed some of it back to you. So is there any remaining part of the island or any other broader land area around there that you guys are now eyeballing as something to put in trust or to require?
Well, there's 275 acres of the island, and we own 90%.
Okay.
The rest of it is in private ownership, or there's 1 acre, I believe, still belongs to the U.S. government.
What are they doing out there?
I think it's U.S. Wildlife.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it's U.S. Wildlife has it. and put you on notice, federal government.
Yeah,
We're
you're
coming.
So what are the challenges facing the tribe now in terms of like the community that you're trying to provide as members of the council or as leadership? What do you see as the most pressing issues facing your people?
Well, my pressing issue is the ability to fish on the river.
Mm-hmm.
That was taken away from us within that 58, 59, where they took our citizenship away from
When they took away your recognition or whatever.
our recognition,
Yeah.
right? And I think that we should do that. I remember Daddy would go out and set net on the Eel River, but he never was caught, thank goodness, because he was probably still sitting in jail. But it was illegal to do that, and Dad would go get fish, and one day he was going across setting net and at night, and the local, what you call those guys that go after people who will go poaching?
And fishing game?
Fishing game, but
Game
game
wardens?
warden,
Yeah.
game warden. And Dad's now going silently because he used motor, he's used row. So
Yeah.
he was rowing across and he's setting net, and he saw the lights come down and come around and parked, and it's looking out over the river. Dad knew that they couldn't see him, but he just kept on, dropped the net, last piece of a net, and he just kept on going across the river. And he says, "Bill Seidner, I know that's you, and I'm going to get you one of these days." And Daddy just kept on going. And when he finally saw him back up and go back up the road, Daddy came back to his car and everything, and never got caught, thank goodness.
But that's a significant piece of the Wiyot identity as well, right? The Eel River was like a mainstay of the tribe, and so they lost their fishing rights.
Yes, we did.
Entirely.
We lost our fishing rights.
Wow. Now that was all, you got the recognition back because of a lawsuit,
Yes.
but that wasn't part of that lawsuit then.
I don't remember why that wasn't a part of the lawsuit. I think what the federal government told us was that if you can find that in writing, we will honor it. So why are we doing your job?
I know, right? I mean, it's
You're
like
the federal government. You were supposed to put that
you're
in.
supposed to have the records, right?
Yeah. But that's what we got told.
Yeah.
Because that was one of my questions when I came back to Humboldt County, as a young Wiyot person, and said, well, why don't we have fishing rights?
Yeah.
I can understand hunting rights, but
Yeah.
fishing rights, that's on the river. That's wide open. That's wild river.
Absolutely.
But it never happened. So that's one of the things I know the present council has been working, because that was one of the things we worked on when I was tribal chair. I know that's where they picked that up from and continuing on.
Have you guys been recently? They talked about removing the dams and stuff from the Eel River, and that the irrigation project. That's probably good news from your guys' perspective as well, right?
Yeah, they started that when I was tribal chair, and we held a water meeting at the reservation at Table Bluff, and Ted, when he became tribal chair, that's one of the things that he picked up. One of his mantras is continuing that legacy, trying to get our fishing rights and water rights back.
Yeah. Absolutely, a huge part.
It is a huge part. I mean, once those dams, once the Powder Valley Dam and the Scotts Valley Dam comes down, it's going to bring back our water. It's going to bring back the health for our fish, because everybody knows that the Eel River was one of the largest fisheries in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the United States, all around the United States, that's where they got their salmon from, was from our Eel River. And they kept the Wiyot people fed. We only took what we needed. But I want to go back to the fishing rights.
Sure.
As I was told by elders, is that we never gave up our rights. So like the U.S. government says, prove it, and we go back to, you prove to us that we gave it up.
Yeah,
so
it's like,
literally, we still have our fishing rights, because if you can't find it in writing saying that we gave it up, then we still have our fishing rights. And if they want us to look for it, no, they need to look for it, because like I tell our young men, go out and fish. If you get caught, we will back you up, because we never lost it. And the elders also said we never gave up our land rights.
Yeah.
It was all taken from us.
Yeah.
So the U.S. government needs to prove to us where we gave these up, because we never did.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting to me about the whole story is that it's like repeatedly it's a David versus Goliath kind of story. You guys are challenged by the federal government. You're challenged by the families or whatever you want to call it that came over that night on the boats to attack. But you guys always rally and fight on. I mean, like you lost your recognition, and then you went to court against the federal government and won. I mean, who can say that, really? I mean, and you guys are a few hundred people in Humboldt County. I just think it's a real example of heroics and like self-preservation and bravery.
We were just no more than 125 people on the rolls back when we got our federal recognition back.
Wow. And you're more than 6 times that now, right? So that's good growth.
And we were, I didn't get to go to the second one, but the first one we went down, we sat in the federal court building in San Francisco for hours, it felt like. And then they said, no, we have no time for you, and they checked us all out. And I'm going, I took a day off of work. I work full time,
Right.
Come on, guys. And so when the next time they set another court date for us to come down, I couldn't make it. My boss said, no, you've been away too long. I said, okay, I got to do what I got to get my paycheck, pay my bills.
Yeah.
So they went down there. That's when we won. And the judge and the federal government said, we will give you 4 houses every year until we pay the bill. And the federal court judge said, no way. You took them and you took all their rights away in one swoop. You will pay them back with enough money to buy land, enough money to put down, I think it was 24, 25 houses now.
And that was the new reservation, right? Because you guys
That's
had
the
an
new
older
reservation.
one, which you also sued about because there was like water quality issues? Or?
Well, that's why it's all started, was from the old reservation.
Yeah.
Is that the water quality wasn't good, and it was kind of swampy in certain areas.
Yeah.
If you're up on the hill, you were fine, but if you were on the lower part, it was a little soft and muddy and watery, especially in the winter time.
Yeah.
And that's how they started that lawsuit. And I think they had about 80 to 100 people sign off on that, and that's when they start pushing it. And it took 20 years. From 1970 to 1990.
Wow.
And when the judge heard how long, he says, we're not going to give the federal government another 20 years. You will get it done. You will find the money.
Yeah.
And so they found the money, and that's how we got the new reservation with 88 acres. The old reservation was 20 acres. And that 20 acres wasn't from the federal government. It was from a church group in Eureka.
Who placed you the first time, right?
They, the one, bought the land
Yeah.
and said, this is yours. And so that's how we got that. And the federal government couldn't let that hang, so they took it under trust.
Yeah.
So they put it into trust, and that's how we lived on that 20 acres until 58, 59, when they decided that there's no going to be, you're going to lose your trust status.
Yeah. Wow. We've only got a minute left. That's how fast time flies around here. But I appreciate you guys. I love hearing you talk, especially you, Cheryl. No offense, Ted.
No.
She's a national treasure.
She is.
And I love, she's one of my favorite people in the whole world. So I thank you guys for coming down here.
Thank you.
And I mean, I look back at the legacy of what has been done in the last 50, 60 years. You guys have basically constituted yourselves out of a few remnants and turned it into a political powerhouse, taking on the federal government and winning. And the city of Eureka. So I think that watching the progress of the Wiyot Tribe as it tries to reclaim its heritage is a powerful story and one we can all learn from. So.
And when you're sitting in the audience at the National Congress of American Indians, and you see Congressman Patrick Kennedy standing on the steps to go up to the platform to speak, and he uses part of your speech in his speech.
There you go.
Just minutes before he stood, I was dumbfounded.
Yeah.
And he used the Wiyot Tribe as a catalyst for, you can do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the story that we should all draw, the lesson we should all draw from your guys' story. So, but like I said, we'll be having more stories like this where we're going to talk about the progress you guys are making, the various programs, and I'm happy to do it. So thank you guys for coming down.
Well, thank you
for having us.
what's this called?
Headline Humboldt.
Headline Humboldt. Well, thank you for the headline Humboldt, because Humboldt was not good to us at the beginning when they all got here, but in the last couple of decades they have rallied and have been partners with us, and we're very grateful for that.
Got to go to break, but thank you guys. We'll be right back after this short break.
Do you love reading? Have you ever wanted to read on Camp TV's Tell Me a Story? Well, now's your chance. What do you need to audition? Be in grades kindergarten through 5. Have a parent or guardian record a short video of you reading a picture book out loud. Submission information is at key.org. Now, if you excuse me, I need to rehearse. Once upon a time.
Friends and supporters of Keat TV, we are calling all who have a passion for public television on the North Coast. Keat is looking for a diverse group of people to join its Community Advisory Board, or CAB. CAB members play an advising role to management and act as Keat's ambassadors within the community. Meetings are held quarterly on Zoom. Go to keat.org, find the link for CAB, and get involved today. We look forward to meeting you.
In 2014, Supervisor Rex Bone spearheaded an effort to create the existing finance reform effort. It caps donation size from one person to any candidate during the election cycle.
Back in the day, there was 10,000 contributions from Orange County developers, unions, organized other governments, bringing in $10,000 at a pop. And 1,500 was a easy number. That was a number that everybody could work with, be fair. That's what was driving it in 2014.
Some folks are able to raise really big money with a lot of $1,500 donations. Others are not able to raise that kind of money. So my thought was, there's a lot of really incredible people out there in our community, and I'm sure that some of them are daunted to even consider running because of the cost to run. So I just thought it would level the playing field a little better to make it 500.
Leveling the playing field. I did this because I care about my community. I wanted to be here. I didn't really know what I was getting into as far as campaigning went. My opponent had spent 3-4 times the amount I did. And so I think if you want to run and if your intent is good, you'll do it regardless. If you want to make a difference and you say, oh, I'm not going to do this because I have to raise whatever X amount of monies, then really you're not there. Everybody here has received more than $500, including yourself last year.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering why now that your election's over, Supervisor Madrone, that you bring this forward.
That's a good question, and I've been thinking about this for a number of years. Even if I was running again, I would support that $500 limit.
Supervisors deferred on deciding whether to lower the cap from $1,500 to $500 or to somewhere in between. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next week for more news and views you can use. We're a tight squeeze tonight because of our interview, but it was worth it. So stay tuned, stay informed.